Hi guys, this is Nadia from Imbali Crafts, and today I want to show you how to make this wire wrap pendant with coils. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button because I upload new stuff on a regular basis. I quite often make kits and PDF tutorials for the videos I put up on here, and I'll pop a link in the description below. I also have all sorts of gemstones, square and half round wire, some beads, and all sorts of other goodies on my website. So take a gander over and see if there's anything you fancy. Last but not least, come and join us in our wire wrappers and metalsmiths group on Facebook. I'll also pop a link below. Right, let's get started. So my son and his girlfriend had this geode which they cracked open, and they each got like a small piece from it, so they asked me to kind of wrap it. So I was thinking about wrapping them, and I thought I should come up with something that, you know, is organic, because they're obviously different shapes, one larger, one smaller. So I'm going to wrap these using some coils and the base frame, and then maybe some swirls. And that design obviously can be adapted to the larger stone and the smaller stone. So let's see how it goes. Let's get started. So I've got a 35 centimeter, which is around about 14 inches, I think, of 1.6 14 gauge square wire. And I'm going to be using this as the base frame. So I'm going to fold it in half. Roughly, should better mark it with a marker pen, roughly about here. And we're going to fold it, and I'd like to kind of switch it over, so I'm going to close it off slightly but not fully, like so, and then I'm going to kind of create a shape like this, so it's kind of like a V but flipped over, if that makes sense. I'm going to open this up a bit more. Your copper wire and even silver wire, any wire you're going to be working with, will work hard enough after a while. So I'm going to create a shape, kind of like a base shape to fit. I'm going to start with a larger crystal, so I want to kind of fit it on the inside like that. So I'm going to close off the frame roughly about here. Yeah, I'm just going to bring this in, do the same on the other side, leave a little bit of space so we can maybe add an accent stone at the top. Not really sure what I'm going to do with that yet. And then we're just going to bend this in. Doesn't really matter if it's exactly straight because it's going to be organic. Then I'm just going to flip this over and roughly line these up and straighten this up, and obviously make this straighter. This is a bit skew. I'm going to fix this up. So we're going to straighten these out like that, and then we're going to close this off with some half round wire. So as I said, it doesn't really matter if this is a bit skew because it's going to be an organic design. Right, so I've got a frame. So I've got some 0.8 20 gauge half round wire, and I'm going to attach it to the bell. And this is just to kind of bind it together. So you can either wrap it like so, or you can rotate, whichever you find easier. I do a combination of both depending on where the wire is set. So just going to keep wrapping until we've finished up all the wires. We're going to go to the top. Okay, so I've finished it up, and now we're going to decide which side is going to be the front. So I'm just going to take my stone, and I think I'm going to keep this will be my front, so I'm going to place the stone in it like that. And the next step is to create the bell. So I'm going to bend these wires slightly forward at an angle, And you can do it by hand, but you can also use a tool to create a bend. So I'm just going to use my fingers. Obviously with wires like that, they're a little bit thicker than your other base wires that you use, so it'll be a bit harder to manipulate, so you can also use a tool for that. So I'm just bending it until they meet up again. So I'm going to use these backing wires as a kind of place for the stone to rest on. So I'm going to bend these apart ever so slightly, and then I'm going to attach these to the frame on either side. And these some more. So you're just going to split this up, and then we're going to be attaching these to the frame. So to attach these, we're just going to rotate these over like that. So it's a bit trickier with the thicker wire, but if you just manipulate it right up where the wire is crossing with your pliers, it's not quite as difficult. So people will think, I mean, this thicker wire is harder to work with, but it's not as hard as you think if you apply the pressure in the right places. So I'm just pressing right next to where the wire crosses over, and that kind of helps me to attach these. I'm going to do the same on the other side. And you want to make sure that the square wire doesn't actually twist, so that there is an open section, or that the actual edge sits on it, if that makes sense. So I'm just manipulating this until I'm happy with where it sits. I want it to be a little bit further down, and then I'm going to press it down like so. There you go. And then you can arrange this to suit however you want the stone to sit. I'm going to press it down, and what I normally do is I do one wrap and then half a wrap, so that I can trim the wires off once they are on the inside, so that they don't have any chance of snagging on the skin or anything like that. Okay, so I've attached the wires to the frame, and now we're going to be attaching some 8mm wire, 0.8, which is your 20 gauge. This is also square, so I'm just using this as a little bit of a backing for the tip, because my crystal has got a tip. So obviously you adjust this, you put supports wherever your stone needs it, since these are organic shapes. So you just kind of adjust it to whatever your stone needs. So I'm just attaching this to the frame. So we're going to wrap this once and twice around each side. I'm going to be doing the same on the other side. Okay, so I've attached the wire here. So I've done 2 wraps, and that's nice and secure. So now we're going to place the stone, and the tip just rests kind of where I've put the cross member in. You kind of decide where you want to. So now I'm going to use one of the square wires, and I'm going to create a swirl that will sit over the stone and hold it in place. So I'm just feeding this through slowly, and this will kind of be the starting point of holding the stone in place. And just do it slowly. Try not to damage the stone, because this kind of geode they gave me is a bit brittle, so I have to try and be careful not to damage anything. So kind of feed it through, and that loop, oh, you can see the little bits coming off. Hope it's going to be okay. So I'm just feeding this through until we have created a little loop. You can kind of gently wiggle it in place a little bit more, and then I'd like to have a little twist. So it needs to come through a little bit more, and just enough so that you can then attach it to the frame. Oh, this thing is crumbling. So I'm going to, oh, it's breaking, so I'm going to have to be careful. I think this bit is going to come off, so I'm going to have to improvise. Yeah, there we go. So I'm going to have to be careful with the rest of the stone. So obviously be careful with your stone. So I'm just going to change the design a little bit. I'm just still going to continue with what I've done here. I'm just going to be attaching this to the frame just now. I have to be careful with the remainder of the stone. So pity, because I quite like that point. Anyway, so I'm just going to fix this up a bit, and then we're going to be attaching this end to the frame. Okay, so I've taken the stone out for now, just to try not to damage it anymore. So I'm just going to wrap the square wire around the frame. I didn't pick the best geode, but if that's what they want wrapped, so I'm going to be doing it. Hopefully it doesn't break anymore. It would be a shame, because it's what they specifically chose. Right, so we're just going to close this off. All right, unfortunately I have to move on to plan B. This crystal is just too weak, even if it doesn't fall apart while I work with it. You know, if she's going to wear it and, you know, drop it or something, this is going to break. So unfortunately can't use this, so I have to improvise. So I don't have another irregular stone that I could use, so I'm going to use a pear, and I'm going to try and sort of adjust the frame to it. Obviously now it would have to be straight, but I'll give you actually an idea that you can adjust mid design. So I'm just going to bend the frame a little bit outwards to accommodate the frame, or the stone rather. So I'll just try, and very gently, I don't want to damage too much of the shape. And then I'm going to fit the stone and see if that works. So that should kind of work. Just going to adjust it a little bit more. We want it to sit nice and straight, but this is how you sort of adjust mid design. You can then use something else if whatever you had in mind turns out not to actually be right anymore. You can change mid design. So I'm just going to adjust it so that it sits nice and flat, and then we're going to do the rest of the pendant. Okay, so I've adjusted the frame. So now we have already one swirl at the bottom here, and I want to kind of tie the stone in place. So I'm going to use the other swirl, and I'm going to bring it up over the stone and attach it to the frame. I could keep my thumb over the stone and the wire, so while I wiggle it through the frame, it doesn't actually move from where I want it to stay, like so. So that's attached. So you can adjust it if it sits over the stone a little bit too much. I'm just going to bring it through a little bit more, like so, and I think that's much better. So now it's sort of halfway bound in place, and we're going to be using this wire to go around the stone some more. I'm just going to adjust it so that it slides in, and I'm going to go one more revolution to give it better grip. So just a square wire like that, and then I'm going to press on the side here, and then that will kind of keep it in place. And I'm going to shift it in some more. Okay, so I've shifted the stone over a little bit more. Now I'm going to use this square wire, and I'm going to create a rotation over, and I'm going to create a little swirl at the top here. It stays in place like so, and I'm going to find a space to go through the frame like that, and I'm going to kind of wiggle it through, and then that will kind of hold the stone in place. And kind of adjust as you go along. And then to create a little sort of insert over the stone, you kind of rotate the wire like that, and that creates this kind of swirl over the stone, and that kind of clamps it in place. And you got a little bit of a swirl there, and that will hold it in place. And then now I'm going to find a space to kind of wrap this off. I may not have enough space here, so I may need to go around both wires. So in your design, obviously it'll be different from mine because it's organic. And find a space where you can tie these off, and the important bit is always to have a short distance between the swirl and the point where you attach it, so that there is as little movement as possible, if that makes sense. So if you have a little swirl here, don't tie it off far on the other side, because there's too much potential for the wire to move and open up. So I'm just going to be attaching it as close to the stone itself as possible. Okay, so I straightened this out, and I've attached it right next to the bale, which is actually not too bad distance wise, because there's enough sort of tension. So I'm going to use this wire, and I'm going to, let's see what I can do with this. Swirl it round, give it a nice little shape here, and I'm going to bring it down here, and I'm going to attach it to the frame. There's just enough wire left to give it kind of one wrap, and that will help the stone to be secured. I'm going to bring this through, and that's just enough to come round one more so that the wire is tucked away. Then after it's attached, you can kind of adjust as well to see how you want this wire to kind of sit. So that's what it looks like so far. So I'm going to use the leftover wire, and I'm going to bend it round like that, and just kind of follow the shape. You can place it wherever, and then I'm going to attach it to the frame here. Kind of keep my finger over the wire so it doesn't move as I attach it, like that, and then you can kind of arrange it a little bit more to your liking. And then we're going to obviously fold this in some more and trim the wire off somewhere on the inside so it doesn't scratch. All right, so I've adjusted, and next I'm going to add a coil. For this one I've used 0.8 base, which is your 22 gauge, and 0.3 and 0.6, which is 28 and 22 gauge respectively. I've made a tutorial on how to make these coils, so I'll pop a link in the description, and you can then just have a look at it and see how you make these. So I made this coil big enough so that I can kind of fit it into these various gaps. So obviously, again, this is very organic, so you can do it whichever way you like, and you can fit them in. You can even place them across here. It's entirely up to you. I just decided I'm going to stick it in this gap here, so I'm going to feed the main base wire through here and find a place to attach. Pull it through. Actually, I want it closer to the edge, so see if I can go over there. There we go, and see if I can give it a bit of a shape. I think actually I need to maybe attach it on the outside or so. So I'm going to attach it here first, pull it through, and then kind of bring it across to maybe here, and that way it's attached, and I'm using the groove of the wire to kind of feed it in place. Push this through a little and then pull, and then I'm going to adjust this to fit into the gap and attach it on the outside somewhere. And I'm going to do the same. I'm going to go through here and then attach it to the frame. Okay, so I've attached this one, so I'm going to do the same. This is another small coil with the same sort of materials, just a little bit shorter. As I said earlier, you need to make these coils to fit the space that you're going to put them in. So this one is going to go in here, and it's going to, I'm wondering if it's going to go around the outside or the inside, just depends. I think probably both the outside. So I'm going to start by attaching it here as close to the stone as possible. Feed it through here. So now I can fold it over, and then I'm going to do the same here and attach to the frame, and I will be fitting it into this gap here and attach it on the outside of the frame. Okay, so I've attached the wires right here next to the bail, and then sort of in the middle here, so that the wire comes out just above these swirls here, these curves. And I'm going to use this wire here to bring it across, and just to add a little bit more detail. And then I'm going to attach it, just keep my finger over it. I actually don't like this curve. I'm going to fix it up a little bit. And then it's going to bring it across, and then we're just going to attach it to the frame just here. So I'm going to go around, keep my finger over the wire so it doesn't move while I attach it, pull it through, and then do another attach right here, and this will tie it up. You can adjust the swirl after you've created it to change the shape a little bit. So I'm just going to be adjusting it, and then we're going to move on to the next step. Right, so I'm going to trim this wire off. Now we're going to work with the wires on the top here. So I'm going to use this wire that's on the inside here, and I'm going to follow the shape of this swirl here, and I'm going to create a little stone setting to fit in here. So I'm making a very small circle. I think I'm probably going to fit a 3mm stone in there, possibly. So you want to make it as small as possible to fit it in there. So I think a 3mm will fit. So this is how it looks. Place it until I'm happy, and then I'm just going to rotate the wire over the stone. It's a bit tricky because of the positioning in this case. So if you're obviously not comfortable with this kind of setting yet, you can make a coil just like this one, and then you can use a drilled bead instead. Oops, it slips out, so it's a bit tricky here. Just try to get the bead out as you go. Then once you're satisfied, to double check that it's seated properly, we're going to bring this wire through to the back. So put my finger over it and feed it through the frame. So when you hold it like this, the wire that's holding the stone doesn't get distorted, like that. And then gently, gently, gently leave a little bit to adjust, and then pull that through. And we're going to be attaching this wire to the frame. Have to be careful with this. Okay, so this is nicely slotted in, and I've brought this wire up right next to the bail, and I'm going to bring it through to the other side. I'm going to use this to create a bit of detail on the bail. So I'm bringing this through, and I'm going to do the same with the other wire, like so. Just bring it down as flat as I can. so, and then I'm going to create some detail, just little swirls, and that is just so. That it has a little bit of detail there on the bale itself. And then as I go along, every so often I just attach, bring that through like that, just so it has something to tie to. I'm going to do the same, and I just keep going with this sort of detail here until I'm happy with how it looks. And you can just keep on attaching and adding detail here until you get to the top, and then obviously we're just going to tie this off at the back. Okay, so I've added detail and I've cut off these wires right on the inside of the bale, and I'm going to oxidize this before I'm going to add the bead. Okay, so I've oxidized it and polished it up, and for some reason it didn't record, but the wire that was here I have used to add this bead at the bottom, bring it around the frame here, and then lay it against the wire here. I've attached it and then obviously cut that off. So the next step is to just cut a piece of our 0.6, which is 22 gauge round wire, and I'm going to use this to add the beads to this. You add these wherever you want to. I thought it looks quite nice to actually create like an arch around the top here. So just kind of place it and then you attach it to the frame whichever way you like. So that's that. You can add some here, maybe another one in here, just arrange them whichever way you like, and then obviously tie them off as tidy and as neatly as you can. Obviously, as I keep saying, excuse me, is keep the wire towards the inside so that it doesn't snag. And that's that. That's the whole pendant done. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button to get notifications of new video uploads. I've got an artist group on Facebook, which is called Wire Wrappers and Metalsmiths Worldwide. We're a fun bunch, so come and join us. I've got social media as well if you want to keep up with what I'm doing, so little short videos or other projects that I'm doing. I've got TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. I'll also pop a link in the description below. And lastly, obviously, if you need any materials to go with these PDFs and tutorials, you can visit my website and see if there's anything that you need. I've got gemstones, wire, beads, or you name it. Just take a look and see if anything speaks to you. And that's it for me. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next time.